Hi, welcome to the next assembly video for the RepRap Prusa Mendel Iteration 2. In this video, we're going to begin assembling the bed section. And before we can get to the bed, we actually need to get the rods in place. And we need to get all of this measured so that it's very precise. Now, in the last video, we went through and we made sure that the entire RepRap was square. And in this, by using the measuring sticks to make sure that the distances between all of the vertices was correct. And in those measurements, it's not entirely important to make sure that that it's perfectly accurate. I mean, plus or minus, maybe 0.2 millimeters or so is perfectly fine for that. But for this next section, I find it to be extremely important to make sure that we are accurate up to 1/100th of a millimeter when we measure the distance between the smooth rods for the bed. And that's because we want to make sure that the bearings don't bind. And so in order to do that, we will need a digital caliper. And so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so for this we're going to need the two longest smooth rod bars. We should measure to 395 millimeters. Just going to double check this. Yep, okay, 395 millimeters. And we won't need them just quite yet. Okay. So first off, what I like to do is I like to put the belt as close to the center of the RepRap as possible. So in order to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and measure the distance between, should be 234, right? Yep. Okay, and then, so half of 234 is 117. So I'm going to move this over to be about 100, so the center is about 117 millimeters. And then I'm going to measure where that is so that I can get it to a precise location. This isn't as important as the smooth rods, but I still think it's important though. So let's actually just make it 117, yeah, so which would be just a little bit more. Okay. There we go. So the center of the bearing is about 217 millimeters. And what I'm going to do is put this in place. Just sort of lightly. And then I'm going to use the digital caliper. Now when you turn these on, you need to zero them out. We're going to use metric, so it's going to be in millimeters. I'm going to measure the distance between the vertex and the Y motor mount, and I can see that right here it's 92.6 millimeters. The reason why I'm measuring that is because I'm going to want to measure the bottom of it to be 92.6 millimeters as well, so that this is completely flat. So let's go ahead and tighten this up first. Okay, I'm going to need two. You don't want to crush your bearing, so don't make that too tight. That looks good right there. Okay, that's perfect. Nice and strong right there. So let me remeasure actually. Oh, and when you measure, you want to make sure that this is as straight as possible. And you could sort of eyeball it, but just make sure that it's straight. Because if you measure it at an angle like that, it's going to be a little bit longer than if you measure it straight. So sometimes I like to find points that you can use, like make sure that it's touching washer to washer here. And that'll kind of give you a point for reference. And then you can just zero it out, actually. And zero it out to be 0 millimeters. And then I can use that to measure the bottom section. Okay, and I can see that it needs to come in. Okay, and now it needs to come out. Oh, almost there. It just needs to come out a little bit more, so I'm just going to move the inside out, or tighten the inside. Oh, I'm sorry, it needs to go the other way. So I need to tighten the outside. So I'm at about 0.1. Ooh, okay, I'm at 0.03. So I'm just going to tighten the outside a little bit. And I'm at 0.01. So tighten it just a little bit more. Okay, 0.01 is perfectly acceptable, so I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, now I know that the Y motor mount is perfectly aligned straight up and down, and that my bearing guide here is at 117 millimeters right to the center. That way, when when I have the bed installed, when the motor pulls on the bed, it'll be pulling directly in the center of the bed, which is the best place for it to be pulling on the bed when it goes back and forth, to help prevent any binding. Of course, 1 millimeter or even, maybe 0.2 millimeters or whatever probably isn't going to make much of a difference. But if you want to make it right, this is how you do it. Okay, and now that we know that this is, that the center, okay, now we need to make sure that the bearing on the other side matches up exactly to the bearing on this side. So to do that, I'm going to measure from the vertex to the inside of the fender washer here, and I can see that that is 110.55. I'm just going to zero it out, remeasure here, zero it out. Okay. And now I can go ahead and flip this around and get that bearing lined up. So first I can just use my ruler to make sure that it's 117. Okay, that should be pretty close. And so I measured from this side on that side, so I can see that it needs to come out just a little bit more. Oh, that's not good. Well, that shouldn't have happened, but these came loose while I was measuring that, so I'm going to have to make sure I get that recalibrated here. And just a little bit more, and that should be good to go. All right, that's good. Okay. So it needs to come out a little bit more. Oh, perfect, right there. Okay. Okay, now I know that those are lined up just about perfectly. Okay, now that takes care of the belt. Now we need to do the bar clamps for the smooth rods. Now, the way I like to do this is I'm going to measure this from one side. It doesn't exactly matter where you put these. I like to put them at about 40 millimeters from the edge, but I'm not going to measure 40 millimeters from each side in. I'm going to measure 40 millimeters from one side in, and then I'm going to measure the difference between the bars. And that just makes sure that that both bars are aligned straight. Because if for some reason our frame isn't perfect, and we measure 40 millimeters in on both sides, the bars might not actually be the correct distance apart. So if we just measure from one side of the frame in, and then from one bar to the next bar, then even if the frame is slightly crooked, at least we know that both bars are lined up perfectly. So to do that, we're just going to go ahead and use a ruler and kind of get it to about 40 millimeters here, which that's about right. Oh, wow. I've got good eyes. That's about right. So go ahead and slide your bars through. And at this point, you're going to need to put on some linear bearings. So what I like to do is I like to, when I put these on, just set them on gently and then just sort of work them in gently. If you just jam them in, you might actually pop a bearing loose. So just be very gentle when you put these on, and go ahead and put on 4 of the 2 on each side. Once you get it on, it should rope pretty smoothly. And since this is an iteration 2, we're actually going to be mounting the rods on the top side of the RepRap and not the bottom side. Again, be real gentle when you slide these on. Okay, go ahead and put these on finger tight. Okay, and then so we're going to start from this side, and we're going to use the digital caliper to make sure that this is measured out properly. And I'm going to zero it out at 0. And I'm going to measure between the vertex here and on the rod itself. I'm not going to measure to the plastic part. The reason for that is because this plastic part is actually going to scrunch as we put these, as we clasp these nuts. We want to make sure that the distance between the bar and the frame is what matches. And the most consistent part on the frame is going to be the vertex, because the threaded rod has ridges in it, and the nuts aren't always going to be aligned properly, and the washers, of course, are going to be sometimes in and sometimes out. So the most reliable section here to measure against is actually going to be the vertex. Okay, and I can see here that I'm at 37 millimeters. Loosen up that side a little bit. 38.8. 40.1. So I can go ahead and start tightening now. $39.4. So I'm going to tighten this side now. be careful. You don't want to tighten these too much. I mean, as soon as you tighten them to where you can't move the bar, that's plenty tight enough. You don't want to over tighten these. 39.8, so I'm going to loosen the other side, tighten this side. 30, oh, there we go. Let's see. Let me get this lined up so it's just right. That's 39.99. So tighten the outside a little bit. 40.02, I tighten the outside a little bit. Just get it, I mean, 1/100th is close enough, but try to get it to exactly 40 millimeters. You wouldn't think it would make much of a difference, but I think it does. I mean, it really prevents the bearings from binding if you can get it just right. So go ahead and spend all the time you need. Just get it right to 40 millimeters here. I'm at 40.03 right now, so I'm just trying to tweak it just enough to get it just right. That's it, 40 millimeters right there. So this bar right here is done. Now I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to make sure that the bar is 40 millimeters from this side of the frame on this side now. It's just about 40 millimeters, so I'm just going to tighten it up on both sides here. That's 40.6. Just bring it in some. 40.5. $40.3. It's about 40.1 right there. Oh, I'm a little over it. I'm 39.95. Tighten it back out. 40.05. Oh, that went the wrong way. 39.98. 40.04. 39.99. So just gonna bring it out just a little bit. There we go, 40. Okay, so this should be 40 millimeters on both sides now. I'm just going to double check the other side just to be sure that it didn't move around. Okay. It is reading 40.04. So I'm just going to bring it in a little bit. Of course, now it's 39.97. $39.99. It's just a little bit more. A little bit more. Got it to 40.01. 39.99. I really like to make sure that this is precise. And I'm there. It's at 40 now. Okay. And I'll just double check the front again. Yeah. Well, technically this is the back, but this is my front. So it still need to be tweaked a little bit more. Perfect. Okay, that should be good. So now it should be 40 millimeters from this side. So next, now that we have that at 40 millimeters, we need to measure between the bars here to get the other bar locked in. Make sure it's zeroed out. And we're going to make that distance, looks like 139. Yeah. So I'm going to make that distance at 139 millimeters. So let me go ahead and tighten this up. Now, for this one, since this is the most vital measurement, I'm using a method here to make sure that my measurements are consistent on both sides. And what I'm doing is I'm actually, technically the ruler isn't perfectly straight here. I'm dropping it in so that it rests snugly against the rod and the rod clamp here. And then I'm bringing this side in and I'm bringing it snug too and pulling it out. And that way, when I do this, when I use the same method on the other side, I'll know that it's exactly the same distance apart. It doesn't need to be 139 millimeters exactly. It just needs both the rods just need to be exactly the same distance apart on both sides. Almost there. I'm at 139.1, 139.05, 139.01, 138.98, 139.01, exactly 139. And I'm sort of pulling a little tight on this one too. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, so I'll know that they'll be exactly the same distance. At least down to 1/100th of a millimeter, which is pretty darn close. Almost done. This is probably one of the most tedious tasks. But it's really important to make sure that these are accurate. So it's 139.4. Of course, this isn't even tight yet. One 139.22. 139.14. 139.15. What? Oh. It's... Oh. It's a little dark on this side. I was actually reading it wrong here. Kind of way off. Oh, because it's upside down. Wait a second. Yeah, okay. It was 136 actually. Oops. Because it's upside down on this side. 138. There we go, 138.7. 139.05, wow. 139.06. 139.02. 98. 39.05.